It is Clay Day, where we magically turn our clay into a castle. So, to start this project, we are going to roll our clay into a slab. So, that means on the fabric, we are flattening this out like a pancake. So, I think when I do this, my table is going to shake horribly. So, I'm going to flatten with my hands, flipping as I go, and then rolling pin safety. Your hands stay on top in the middle. They do not go inside. They do not hit. They do not shake. They do not use this as a weapon. So as I'm rolling this out, I might turn my burlap fabric. And as I go, I am going to peel this up, and flip my clay. So my goal is to roll this big enough to fit the patterns at your table. So by 4th grade, most kids can do this by themselves. I will help if you need it. But I think you guys have as large a muscles as me probably. So I'm almost there, super close. Just need a little bit more up in this top corner. Before I cut my pattern out, I'm going to double check that it's not stuck. So that means I flipped it over and I can just peel the fabric off. So I'm going to trace with this bumpy texture. If you don't like the bumpy texture, we can fix it in a minute. But it fits. I like to use this scratch tool. So you can trace along the pattern hard, or you can do it gentle and push again or trace over it again later. I like to just push hard. I can actually feel that burlap, and you can hear it, that I'm cutting the clay. Oh, forgot an end. At this point, somebody else can use the tracer, and I am going to peel off this extra. You will use some of these scraps for your clay castle. You might have some left over at the end, so I'm just going to set those to the side. So at this point, if you like this kind of bumpy texture for your castle, you can leave it. If you would prefer to start smooth, you could do that as well. I am going to create stairs on this diagonal line. This is probably the hardest part for 4th graders. I'm going to use a right angle. So that means on the diagonal, I am going to go down and over. So right now I am just lightly drawing down and over. I am not cutting my clay. Down and over. Most kids don't make a right angle, and they start to do what I think looks like alligator teeth. See the difference between this and this? These have right angles. They look like a part of a square. So as I continue, I am always doing those right angles all the way down to the very bottom. Once I have them set, I'm going to cut them out. And if you want to have Mrs. Cleary check them before you push harder and cut them out, just raise your hand and we'll make sure we have right angles on all of them. So at this point, I'm ready to kind of add some designs and windows. This area right here, where it's still very rectangular or square, we won't see a lot of this. So you want to do more your details by the stairs. So if you want to do a door or you want to do a few windows, I am just drawing them before I cut, because if I don't like something, I can just erase it. I did kind of like that window though, so I'm going to do a window there. At the very top of the castle, on this top edge, I am going to cut out a few of those squares that we talked about, called a parapet. So I got about 3 squares cut out at the top. Gives my castle a nice jagged edge. I am going to go ahead and add a few textures. So I like to use some of the tools. Even a popsicle stick pushed in makes it kind of look like a stone texture. So again, a lot of my details are on this side, because this edge over here is going to get wrapped around and be in the inside. I've got a door, I've got a window, and if you notice, I have not done anything with this door. I haven't squished it because I'm actually going to use that for something in just a minute. So you will have a newspaper at your table. I am going to flip my clay over so that I can't see the designs. I am going to put this newspaper on the longest side of my castle, so not where I put the door or where I have my steps. If you notice the newspaper, I'm pushing it so it's in line with the bottom of this clay, and I am going to wrap my clay just by rolling it around this newspaper. The edge, I am going to add a little bit of water, so we called that a score and a slip, and I'm going to smear that edge together. Now you have the option of making a base on your project or just leaving it as a single castle. If you want to leave it as a single castle, you might have to cut out some of those spots. So the window looks good, I can see through it, but the door got covered up. So while it's on the newspaper, I'm going to cut that door back out so I can see in my castle. If you're going to leave it like this, I'm going to have you put your initials, so M for Mrs., C for Cleary, right where they attach. If you're going to put a base on there, I would put your initials on your base. So, a base. Using your extra clay, I'm going to flatten this out. Use my rolling pin. This base cannot be any bigger than your hand. So that's a good size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of follow this weird shape I made with my tool to kind of give my clay a nice smooth edge. If you want to make this a perfect circle, you can. I kind of like how it's not really a perfect circle. It's got a funny shape to it. I'm making sure it's not stuck to the fabric. I am going to flip this castle over. I'm going to score and slip the bottom of the castle, and then I'm going to put it on this base, remembering that I need to smear the castle on. So to get a better look at that, I am trying to push this clay onto the base so it stays on there. So I'm doing that all the way around. So I didn't ruin that door. I still have it here, because I'm going to put it on my base like it's the drawbridge that is opened up. So I score and slip everything that I put on. So as you look on this example, this vine is just a coil, scored and slipped on. These little rocks, each were scored and slipped and pushed into the clay. You could add the bridge, the draw part of it, the chain. They do break often, as you can see. You can draw on this base. You can add rocks on this base. You can add trees. Everything you add has to be scored and slipped. So right now, I am going to maybe add some rocks on the side of my bridge. So I put some water and I scored it with the toothbrush. And I'm just going to add some shapes that look like rocks around the edge. When you're finished, you can carefully flip your clay over. If you have a base, this is where you're going to put your initials, scratching them in nice and neat. You're going to put your clay castle on the spot Mrs. Cleary is pointing to right now, and then it's going to harden. Later on today, Mrs. Cleary will slide this newspaper out, and your project will go into the kiln when it is dried. Any extra clay is going to go to Mrs. Cleary's table in the plastic bag. You're going to need to put your tools back on that tray. Pick up your fabric. Give it a light little shake at your table. Important step is to sweep. So brooms and dustpans are on the wall by the closet. I'm going to sweep my crumbs into that dustpan and throw them away. That's all we're doing for cleanup. We are not going to wash the tables, but we definitely have to wash our hands.